Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us to learn more about maximizing Google tools in your classrooms and schools. I'm Maggie Layfield. I'm going to be your host for today's webinar. Just one or two housekeeping items as we get started. The chat is live and you are welcome to ask questions at any point in time. Please just note that we may not answer them until the end, where we will have a little Q&A session in the last 5 to 10 minutes of the webinar. And now, our discussion today is around transforming your teaching, unleashing the power of Google and Chromebooks in your classroom. And we have three very fabulous Google and Chrome experts and enthusiasts who are here to share their knowledge with us. So let me introduce them. Our first guest is Abid Patel. So he leads the digital strategy and delivery of all learning experiences at Newham Community Learning over in the good old UK in England. He is a Google certified trainer and innovator. He's a leader of the Google Educator Group UK and incredibly passionate about digital transformation. Hi, Abid. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Maggie. Thanks for having me on.
We are happy to have you here. You are joined by some fabulous people. Megan Alfano has spent 10 years in education and currently teaches science and STEM at a middle school in Alberta, Canada. Getting all international here today. She is also a Google for Education certified innovator and loves to incorporate hands-on experiences for her students using coding, makey, robotics, and other tools in her classroom. Welcome, Megan. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
We're glad you're here. And our last but not least is our good friend Jen Lieben. She's a technology coach and a 2020 Illinois Teacher of the Year finalist. She's a Google certified innovator, Adobe innovator, and fun fact, children's book illustrator. She's got more than 20 years of teaching experience, which includes areas like fine arts, technology, and library makerspace classes. So Jen, thanks for rounding out our panel for today and joining us.
Very international now.
We've got it all covered here. We just, we're having a bit of a party, but we love having everybody here and having so many different voices from different areas. So we know you're going to bring a lot of great background and experience to the discussion. So the one thing that kind of unites you all together is y'all are Google innovators, right? So certified innovators. So what makes you so passionate about Google tools and technology, and why go through the process of becoming an innovator in the first place? Jen, do you want to kick us off, perhaps?
Sure. Google Innovator was hands down the best PD I ever had in my entire career, just because it is a space with like-minded educators where sometimes in a school you get some crazy ideas and you're like, I want to do this, this wild idea, try something new. And you get the teacher that's like, oh, of course you want to try that, and you're kind of like shamed a little bit. But in Google Innovators, you tell someone about your crazy idea and they go, yes, that's great. And then how about we add this thing? And then we add this. And then you're like, oh, and it's just so energizing and so great. So like it's just, they're fun to be around, but like also in a professional sense, like we encourage each other and help each other. And it's so welcoming. I mean, like how else am I on a webinar right now with friends from all over, like literally the world? So the network, it's so great.
That's awesome. Megan, what about you? What do you love about Google and why go through the certification?
I mean, I just yes to everything that Jen said. Absolutely. Especially from like being in an area where there aren't a lot of Google innovators. There are Google trainers, but I hadn't really experienced any level of professional development like I did when I went to Innovator. It was just absolutely incredible for the experience, even just to go through the Innovator experience with the 3 days and then the whole year after that to work with mentors. And then, we're a few years past that now, and just like the network and the support from everybody all the time, like Jen said, regardless of your crazy ideas, it's just always really nice to have that group of people in your corner, and it just continues to grow and grow every year.
That is awesome. Abid, are you getting some support for your crazy ideas too? What's it like for you?
100%. Exactly what both Jen and Megan said. And I always say, I have so many international connections now, and that is because of Innovator. Megan and I did Innovator in London 19 together. And you know, I don't know how we would have met if it wasn't for that. And I met Jen through those communities as well. And I think that is probably the most powerful bit of it for me is the communities and the people you meet through it prior to Innovator. And people find this hard to believe, given I know so many people worldwide now. I did not know anyone outside of London, let alone London. I did not know anyone outside of my area of London in edtech, and it's unreal. Like just how many, just 6 years on, how many people around the world I talk to every single day when it comes to edtech, and that is purely because of the Innovator program. You speak to any innovators out there, and they will tell you how passionate they are about that community because of the opportunities that come up from that community, because of the connections that come up, because of the people you meet, the people you collaborate with, having that having that pool of people to just share your wacky ideas with and actually get them to come to life. It's not just a conversation. The way those actions just kind of fall into place afterwards, and you end up with something really tangible, no matter what it is phenomenal.
That's amazing. So it sounds like the Google train is going strong, obviously, especially for those of us in the US, the Google train has been going for, I mean, nigh on a decade now, if not more, but it's hard to believe, but obviously, for every couple of schools out there that are using Google tools, there are still schools out there that haven't rolled them out or haven't rolled them out to the extent that other ones have. So what advice would you guys give to a district or to a school that's really looking to kind of jump into using Google tools for education and really begin implementing either Chromebooks or the actual Google tools themselves with or without Chromebooks, and any ways that they can maybe measure their success as they begin to roll that out?
I can't speak much to this because I haven't experienced like being part of a full rollout. But from the teacher standpoint, I would say taking the time to intentionally plan. So not just throwing a bunch of Chromebooks at a school and being like, here you go, have fun, because that's going to cause teachers to panic a lot of the time. We're so busy all of the time and we have so many new things coming in. So if those new things are coming in, having supports in place, having a few key Google tools that you really want to have teachers use just to provide that consistency across maybe your district or even just your school would be really helpful, rather than just kind of saying, here's a bunch of Chromebooks for your classroom, roll with it. That works for some of us, some of us are like, yes, give me all of the tools all the time. But then I know for others, just speaking from experience, there are other teachers who would maybe panic and shut down in that situation.
I think for me, it's really understanding the why behind pretty much anything you want to do, but especially such a fundamental change in systems really sometimes. If you're historically using, traditional on-premise systems, then moving to a Google Workspace environment is a considerable change. And every sort of considerable change, I will always say, the success is always when it comes from the top down and includes every single member of the school community, from leadership all the way to those people working straight at the front line, and then also the wider community, helping people understand, especially if you're looking, you have thoughts of rolling out a one-to-one strategy, for example. You need to liaise with parents and help them understand what that's going to entail. And the one thing I will say that is the fundamental of everything after the why is training. Training. Did I say training? Yes, I said training. I mean, you cannot have, I have seen so many rollouts of Google Workspace and Chromebooks and even other devices worldwide in schools. And it's always very disjointed, and you always find out there's you have your key staff. You're just like I would normally say, when you're trying to do any sort of rollout, and how Megan said, have your champions. You'll have those key staff in school who have been there for like 25 years, and then and they've never had any training, and they come in with sole focus of, I just want to get my job done. And suddenly you want to take away their tools that they know and love and bring in these new tools, and suddenly it's panic. And that person usually has the most clout in school, and they will become your public enemy number one sort of thing. And I always find, sitting down with these people, and when you just show people the way, you'll have that light bulb moment. Oh, by the way, this is how you can get page numbers in Google Docs, for example. And suddenly you win them over. And I think that's why it's so important to have boots on the ground, and being able to support your school community, your immediate colleagues and school community in that transition into what you want to implement.
Yeah. I have a lot of experience with like transitioning over in schools as an instructional coach. So I love what Abid said about the training, because that's something that I get tasked with doing a lot. And I think finding similarities between non-Google tools that teachers are familiar with and showing how they transfer over to Google, and they're similar and sometimes even easier to use or have additional features, are good. And one example would be in one of my school districts, we encouraged all teachers to seek out their Google Level 1 educator certification. And we designed a cute little badge that we laminated and literally hung it outside their classroom door. And it was slow to catch on at first, but now if the teacher's in the hallway and they see all of their teammates with their badges hanging up, they start to get like the peer pressure, and they're like, oh, where's my badge? And now when they pass, they come to me angry. They're like, I passed, where's my badge? And they get real mad. So it's like, you kind of can use that power of, your school teams and things to kind of have that catch on. But training, yes, it's key.
It's one good example of peer pressure being used for a positive as opposed to a negative, is the don't want to miss out, get your Google badge around your classroom. But amazing how that motivates people. And, as we talk about using Google, we all know you mentioned Google Docs, Google Workspace, Google Classroom, Google Sheets. The list can go on and on. So can you share with me your favorite, and I hate picking a favorite child, I know, I'm terribly sorry, but your favorite Google tools and any sort of advice or best practices for getting started using them in the classroom or in the administrative environment, just things you think might be helpful for anybody who's like, oh, what do I do? And is ready to go.
For me, I'll go a bit left field and say my favorite tool that I probably use the most these days is Google Chat. It's primarily because I'm an IT director. I'm primarily office based. I deal a lot with Gmail, and you've got the death by Gmail approach of an endless inbox that becomes your task list. A long time ago, I did a session on Inbox Zero, which was an amazing change in mentality to how you can sort of become a lot less bogged down by your email, but your inbox list. But I think it's really useful to sort of get chat, or the culture of chat in schools. I know in the UK, there's been a huge thought process around chat is like WhatsApp and Instagram and those kind of things, and it's the stuff that you do in your personal life, and so it's not seen as productive, shall we say. But it's amazing how, since we've rolled out chat in our environment, it's become even more productive. It's so easy to get in touch with people. It feels so much more informal, but in a professional way, if you see what I mean. Like email literally feels like you're writing a letter to someone these days, whereas with a chat, there's no need for the "Hi Maggie, how are you doing? Hope you're well. This is what I need from you," sort of thing. You can just sort of get to the point, and the conversation just kind of flows much more naturally. We've saved money by not having to pay for phones in every classroom to get, for the chance that someone needs to make a call to someone. You can immediately get in contact with anyone in the organization immediately. And yes, it's I'd say it's not necessarily the tool that people will immediately think in the classroom, but also it gives an avenue for the children to sort of build that digital citizenship in how they integrate with these kind of tools in their external, in their personal lives. And we do it all in the safe environment of Google Workspace, with an adult within that chat space being able to moderate what's going on.
So Abid, you have it turned on for students, and students use chat?
Yeah, in some schools there's a mixture. So some schools use Google Classroom for the chat, as in the chat stream. Some schools actually use chat, but you use in those cases we lock it down heavily using the admin console, so they can't chat to people outside of the organization, and so it's all within the safe environment. And also that they can't create their own chat spaces and those kind of restrictions, so that it's all done safely.
Actually, that's interesting. I'm just going to jump in really quickly regarding
Yeah.
chat. So because at our school, which is different for me because I've been homeroom elementary teaching everything for so long, and now I teach, 120 kids science and STEM throughout the day. So we have chat where the students are able to chat with the teachers. So it's been really helpful as far as communication, homework help, just a quick question, because occasionally, depending on what's going on, I might not see them for a few days, where it can, I'm upstairs, I'm downstairs, it can be hard for them to find me. So we found it really helpful.
My mind is blown right now, you guys. I have not heard of chat being used with kids, because I would just it gives me anxiety to think about, like cyberbullying and like another thing to monitor. So it's cool. I like seeing it being used for good. So yeah.
That's awesome. And it brings up a point, which I was going to bring up later, but I'll bring it up now, is, we do see a huge concern for students with online safety, with bullying, with cyberbullying and digital things along those lines, devices being used appropriately versus inappropriately. So it sounds like, Jen, for you guys, you don't have it turned on because the idea of policing that is a bit terrifying. But then Abid and Megan, you guys do have it turned on. So how do you feel like schools can address these concerns about student online safety? Are there tools, like Abby, you're talking about, instead of workspace, that you can initiate, or things that you can do or you do to help prevent the worst from happening when it comes to technology for our students?
So we have a one-to-one Chromebook rollout in a few of our schools, and our ISP, internet service provider, provides a filtering system that we use, and that filtering system is also installed onto the Chromebooks. So when they go home, the Chrome, if they're using the Chromebooks, regardless of whether they're using it on their home Wi-Fi, it will filter through the system so they can't reach any inappropriate pages. Here in the UK, the Department for Education has actually put in this year, they've put in a requirement where we have to have monitoring systems in place as well. And we're in a NetSupport webinar. I know NetSupport have a product called Classroom Cloud that effectively achieves just that, where it will take screenshots of a child's Chromebook if there is any inappropriate content that is detected, and then it will, I think it records the first few seconds and the after seconds to sort of show that journey of what the child has been achieving or doing, to eliminate for false positives. So we do have tools that in place that support, that work on the Chromebooks, to then ensure that that the usage and the experience that the children have is as safe and as secure as possible.
That's awesome. Now, Jen, for you guys, obviously you guys have restricted certain things, but for the tools that they do have, are there other things people should be considering, or that you guys have done to help with the online safety and to avoid cyberbullying and things like that happening?
It's so interesting, because every school I work with is different and kind of has their own policies. Like, I've been in districts where email is turned off for students and they don't have access to it because they're worried about emailing. And then in one of my districts, they just opened it up like in the last year, because it's good for students to learn how to use how to write in emails, how to advocate for themselves, ask the teacher if you have questions. But there are so many systems out there that if you're using like Google Classroom or another LMS, a lot of times those services have their own messaging systems from within there as well. So there's like just a lot to manage and a lot to keep track of. And schools kind of need to take a step back and think like, what are our tools? What are our, what is our communication channel? Is it chat? Is it Gmail? Is it, I don't know, are we texting each other? Are we WhatsApping? Whatever it is, and kind of designate, because it has the potential to get really chaotic otherwise. So I think that's where teachers kind of are at this point, especially like post-COVID, and they're so overwhelmed from all the different things that are out there. And schools, I know like in the US, it became a little bit Wild Westy. And in my particular state, we now have rules where you have to have agreements with tech services about student data privacy and things like that. But there's still so much. And every time it's like playing a game of whack-a-mole. Every time you think you got this safety thing down, the kids find a way, or they find out this is why we can't have nice things. And I say it in the most loving way. I love my kids, but man, they cause trouble.
They do. We have a saying around here that they're like the velociraptors in Jurassic Park, and they just keep testing the fences until one day they figure it out. Out they go.
Yes.
And you don't want to be on the other end of a velociraptor. You really don't. Like, it's just not.
I literally made this reference yesterday at like 2:30 p.m. to a coworker. I was like, why do I feel like Chris Pratt right now?
I love that.
We all get it. We all get it. So now, Megan, for you guys, like you said, you have chat turned on, and the students can communicate with you. Have there been concerns about them? Can they communicate with each other? Are there concerns about them saying things that are inappropriate or doing things they shouldn't? How are you guys handling that?
I'm sure that there are. That is not my role currently. But I do work very closely with my coworker who that is her role. So it's a lot of conversations. Our approach in our district is a lot of education around this, a lot of working with the students regarding safety, citizenship, having those consequences in place, and those monitoring systems in place. I'm not sure exactly what we have. I could definitely find out. But it's kind of the same thing as, we block something, they're going to find something else. It's almost a game, I think, sometimes, as far as like, oh, okay, I can't use this, but there is this other thing that I can use. And then everybody, they're so fast. So I think for us, the approach is we're never going to be able to win this game of whack-a-mole. So how can we then support them? Because as they move on to different schools, they're going to have more access, and they are getting older, and these tools are only becoming more readily available. So, and then that goes for, cyberbullying, security, AI, privacy, ethics, and everything kind of in between.
That's a really good point. And I mean, Jen, you mentioned obviously the Wild Wild West, that the US kind of felt like post-COVID. And I think everyone experienced, an influx of technology. And then all of a sudden the students were at home, then they were back again. The engagement levels have changed. And a lot of what we're talking about really just comes down to classroom management. So when they're on their devices, when they're using different tools like docs or sheets or whatever, it's making sure that they're being used appropriately, obviously, and that they're staying focused. Are there any techniques for teachers, like in the classroom or Abid, from an IT standpoint, of helping kids to stay focused? Because let's be honest, I mean, they could be locked down to just being on Google Docs, and they could be like, I'm gonna write a story. I'm gonna, they're gonna mess around because it's what they do. So what do you do to kind of help them stay focused and engaged with what's going on in the classroom and with the technology they have?
Well, I think tools like the prior to the monitoring conversation that we had here in the UK, tools like Classroom Cloud were used heavily by teachers to try and control that focus with the students in the classroom, and being able to at the touch of a button lock down the Chromebook so that you get a big massive splash screen that says attention please or something, or stop what you're doing, and so it kind of just stops that entire thing dead straight away. And I know that's been a huge win from the technical side. I think it's really helped teachers to, because like you say, you can't look at 30 screens at the same time with your eyes, but you can on your monitor with all of the preview windows, and so you can the tech has been really helpful in being able to manage the tech, shall we say, from that perspective. But I'm sure Megan and Jen, as teachers in the classroom, have some great views on that as well.
I do
Yeah,
have
you go ahead.
one trick that I talk to teachers about, and that is if you do have a monitoring software, which hopefully you do, but I like to take my teacher screen and I put it up on whatever display I have in the classroom, and the students can see each other. So again, are you noticing a theme with me? I'm all about the peer pressure and harnessing it. So not only can I see what they're doing, but the students can see what each other are doing. And if you work with littles, there is nothing they love more than telling on each other. So if you can see what everybody's doing on their screen there, now if you don't have a monitoring system, or an alternative to that is, I love when we work on Google Slides all together, because each student can have their own slide, and I open up the view where you can see all the slides. And the fun part about that is not only can you see that everybody's on task, but you can see each other's work, and the students can see each other's work and say, how did you do that? And then they can help each other. So that's the bonus of that, is kind of seeing each other working live in one place up on the big screen in the classroom. That can be a helpful tool for focus and for engagement.
It's collaboration in the best of both worlds, in the I'm gonna rat on you, and also the how did you do that? I'd like to do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I think, when I'm planning a lesson or something like that, it's about choosing the tools that will feel authentic to them. So we use a lot of Google Earth. We love Google Arts and Culture, those kinds of things where they're like, oh, this is created by NASA, or, it's engaging. And whenever possible, I try and have like Google Slides, I'm a big user of, because I want them to be able to move at their own pace. So if I have to show a YouTube video, I'm not going to show it in front of the class where everybody has to watch it together. I might do that if it's like a one and done kind of thing, but generally I'll put that into a Google slide. And that way kids can watch it over and over again, or they'll have some response questions. And it's just so easy to put all of that in there because I can see everybody's work on maybe Google Classroom. Sometimes I also do the every person has a slide thing where they can see if it's a quick kind of work or response. And it's just a way for them, they're really familiar with Google Slides, I find most of the time by the time they get to me. And so there's not a lot of that like mental load going into learning a new tool. They're pretty familiar, I find. But one of my favorite things to use is actually the Pear Deck add-on for Google Slides. So Pear Deck is so fun because it's got, you have so many different question types. I love the premium feature is something that I have invested in, and they have the draw tool and the drag, and just giving them the opportunity to answer questions in different ways. And then I can see all of their screens. It records all of their answers for me. And then I can also pause. So we can do it as a class where they're all on their screens and they're all answering, and they can see, the lesson and what I see as well. But then if I need to stop and give some extra instruction, I just hit pause. And then everybody's screen goes pause and they go, whoa, what just happened? Like, and it's kind of fun. Like you have all the power, and they're like, oh my gosh, she can control everything I do. And it's just, it's a good time, but it also works really well.
It's like magic. They start freaking
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
I enjoy that. And it sounds like what you guys are saying is it's the engagement piece. It's the getting the kids actually engaged in the learning. They're not going to go wandering down a rabbit hole if they're loving what they're doing, and you're doing, like you said, arts and culture, Google Earth, slides, something where they're interacting and they're actually contributing in part of the lesson, as opposed to passively sitting back and like just trying to absorb content. So, and of course we keep mentioning over and over, keeps getting dropped, but I feel like when you think of Google for Education, Google Classroom is kind of synonymous with Google for Education. So since you guys are certified innovators and you're experts in the Google tools, for those people who are like, Google Classroom, which there are still people who are like, Google Classroom, can someone give us like a brief rundown of what the heck is Google Classroom, and how can you really use it in your classroom as a teacher to help with instructing students and making that engaging classroom environment? I'm coming for you, Jen and Megan. Who wants to do it?
All right, I'll jump in. Just, I'm gonna miss some things, so help and support everybody. So Google Classroom is kind of space where you can, there are two sort of main areas. So there's the stream, which I like to use for updates, quick little announcements, any changes, things that kids need to see right away. Sort of like a little, not like a leaderboard, but like a little message board, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then the assignments part of it is where you can post materials. So I'll post links to all of my like class slides so that when students are away, they can access it in real time. And then I don't have to keep updating it every single time. I just add it to the Google slide and they click the link and they can see what we've done that day. You can set up topics. So if you are creating units of study, like for me, for science, I'll have different topics, and then everything that we do for that unit, I actually split it up into resources and assignments. So anything that's an assignment will go in that little topic for the unit, and anything that's a textbook link, a resource, a video that they need for extra support will go there. I feel like one thing I've definitely had to focus on, especially like going into COVID, was the organization of the Google Classroom, because really quickly, if you don't have any topics and it's a mix of assignments and materials, and now every year there are extra things. So now you can have a quick quiz question, or you can have practice sets, and you can do all sorts of things with Google Classroom. If you're not into it, I definitely recommend checking it out. But having that organization piece is really key, I think.
It's a great tip. No, it's wonderful. And you're right. It can easily become like a snowball, very overwhelming, because, and especially if you started with Google back in the day when like it was a thing, you kind of eased along with it versus coming into it now, it's like walking into your favorite grocery store like 10 years ago, and walking now, you're like, there's too many options. Like, what do you do? So it is good to kind of go piece by piece and have that core organization. Jen, what about you? Are you using Google Classroom regularly, or what tips would you have for teachers who are going to be trying to maximize it for next year?
Yeah, I'm a big Google Classroom fan, although I've had to use multiple different tools at different districts. Basically, anytime teachers want to collect work digitally, I just say put an assignment in Google Classroom and they can submit their file, whether it's like everybody's making videos and you submit them, everybody's doing a Google Doc and you submit it, everybody's doing, whatever it is, that's where it collects it all for you. And then you can also push stuff out. So if you have a Google Doc or even a slides template that you want students to fill out, Google Classroom will automatically, if you set it as such, it will create a copy for each student. And not all learning management systems do that. It's one of the features of Google, and there are add-ons you can, so it can get as complicated as you want it to be, but it can just be really simple. Like it's just a digital turn-in box. Now, when I was working with I call it my littles, but my early learners, my like early elementary students, pre-readers, we were using Google Classroom, and that can get really tricky because they can't read. So one of my favorite things is we would use emojis when we would name things, and I would put, the yellow star in the front, and I would tell my, first graders, like, look for the yellow star and click on that for today. Or during like COVID times, a lot of times I used like the little checkbox emoji, and I'm like, that's the to-do for today. And then anything older assignments just went under a different topic of like past things. And then just the things we were doing that week came up on the top. So depending on your needs, you can structure it very differently. And it does have a potential to be overwhelming. So you need to be really thoughtful about how you want to organize it. So like Megan was saying, the topics, like, do you organize it by your unit of study? Do you organize it by the week? Do you organize it by dates? Whatever. And there's a lot of different things. You just need to make the choice. And once you make that choice and you stick to that format, it all kind of flows after that. But yeah, you do need to kind of set yourself up for success.
Yeah, actually, if I could quickly add one more thing, this reminded me of something within the assignments. One thing that I really like, just because we were talking about chat earlier, is the ability to add a private comment to the student's work. So when they turn something in, if they have a question or you want to give some feedback, that private comment is really, really nice.
That's excellent. And that immediate feedback is such an important teaching tool, because then they get that information. It's done in a way where they don't feel like they're being called out, or that everyone knows if there's something that maybe needed to be tweaked or wasn't quite right, and they have a chance to correct it or fix that. And that's part of the learning process, right? Is coaching them through that so that they can be successful and they can get to where you want them to be, which are awesome tips. And I feel so bad for poor Abid, who is sitting up there and like he's not in the classroom. So this is not, so this one's just for you, Abid, I promise. So now, now you can get in there. But one of the biggest concerns from the IT side is student data privacy, cybersecurity, keeping students, keeping student data safe, especially now that everything is in the cloud and online. So when working with Google and Google tools, how can schools ensure really robust cybersecurity measures, or how can they protect their student data and information? Are there any special concerns maybe to think about with Chromebooks or Google centric environments, things they should be aware of that'll help them to manage that better?
Thanks, Maggie, for bringing the technical into it. I think one of the biggest wins with Chromebooks is their security. Chrome OS is probably one of the most secure operating systems on the planet. A Chromebook comes with 2 operating systems on it. So you've got the operating system that you actually use, and then the operating system that sits in the background that does all of the updates. And then as soon as you reboot the device, it literally switches the operating system over and gives you the updated version. It does a secure boot every time you turn the device on, so it goes through all of the security checks to make sure that there isn't anything wrong in place. There have been no recorded instances of ransomware attacks ever on Chrome OS, which is a phenomenal achievement from that perspective. But also with Google Workspace, there is so much that you can do from a security perspective that enables you to keep your entire school community safe when using Google Workspace tools. Google Workspace supports 2-factor authentication, or two-step verification, as they call it. So if if someone finds out your username and password, they try to log in, they can't log in without the 2-step verification. So that's either a 6-digit code that you get sent as a text message, or using the Google Authenticator app, or you can actually use these physical tokens called USB security keys, that when you put your username and password in, you have to then put the token in, and you have to actually press the button. So that gives you an extra layer of security before you log in. And then when using Chromebooks, you have for schools, you actually have what's called the Chrome Education Upgrade. So that is a license that you purchased, and it's a one-off license that you purchase at the time when you purchase the Chromebook. And it's not a yearly charge or anything, it's just a one-off purchase. But then that allows you to enroll the Chromebook into your Google Workspace domain, and then the administrator can then put lots and lots of settings and security settings onto that Chromebook, so that things are correctly locked down, restricted, and create that really, really safe environment. So from a safety and security perspective, it's probably one of the #1 platforms out there, because there is so much that you can do. And then if you really want to get technical, within the Google Admin Console, there are so many security features. I think now you can have something like, I think it was 250 to 500 policies on a Chromebook that you can really, really customize it down. If a Chromebook ever gets stolen, you can lock that Chromebook down to the point where it literally becomes a paperweight. And so theft of Chromebooks has just gone down the drain, because they're useless once they're outside of the environment. So from that perspective, it is so much more secure. And there are loads of things to keep you safe. And the main one is all of the Google Workspace tools are GDPR compliant and COPPA, FERPA, and CIPA compliant in the US. So it ticks all of those data protection boxes as well.
That's awesome. I feel like I just learned a few new things about Chromebooks, like with the operating system in the background. I didn't realize that's how that worked. So there's my fun techie fact for the day. I appreciate that. But more importantly, we know that the security of of our students is really important. Obviously, we're trying to do as much as we can, and sounds like Chromebooks are a really great way to help to ensure that. And I know there's always the fun argument of like, oh, a Chromebook, no one uses Chromebooks in corporate environments. We should have other, more corporate-y type things. But I think especially for students, when they break things so often, it's nice to have things that if they either can't break, or if they do break them, they're easily to replace too. So it's not too much of a hassle. I know
One of the great things that Google have recently done is they say now that any Chromebook you purchase, as of today, effectively, is supported for 10 years. Good luck getting a device through school for 10 years because for the amount they get. But you know that a device will be supported with 10 years worth of security and feature updates. So that's really that's a phenomenal thing that they're doing. But also from a environmental and sustainability perspective, they're really doing great stuff with regards to having more and more working with more and more device manufacturers to be to make their Chromebooks more repairable by the users as well. So devices aren't just ending up in landfill, which is a real problem with e-waste all around the world.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Anything we can do to be helping to recycle and upcycle things so they get more use out of them. And we've seen some wonderful school districts. I don't know if you guys have these in yours, where they train the students, like in middle school and high school, to help them learn how to repair the Chromebooks. So then they're actually part of that process. They get those schools, and then they leave knowing how to do these awesome techie things that enable them to help them find a career in technology, or or to kind of inspire that passion in STEM that they normally wouldn't have. Has anyone been doing that with students in your schools, or have you seen students involved in that process?
Okay, so actually, it's not my STEM class, but our grade 8-9 STEM classes just started this a few months ago. So our tech at central office had a bunch of computers, like desktop computers, and I don't know a lot about the ins and outs of the computers, but they had dropped them off for these students who were really interested, and they're doing a passion project where they're taking bits and pieces and parts and they're rebuilding them. They're taking a look at what the issues are, seeing if they can find parts to repair them, refurbish them, and then use them in the school, because we have a bit of a Chromebook shortage right now. So it's really cool.
That is awesome. That's what I mean. Really, that's redirecting purposes right there. Like, okay, you want to break it, learn how to fix it, and then you can, like be part of the solution, which is awesome. So one last tip we want to give for everybody before we go into like the Q&A and give people a chance to ask questions is, what are your go-to resources for professional development, for personal development when it comes to Google? What should teachers or admins, where should they be going to help them to leverage these tools more in their classrooms and to learn more about what they can be doing with them?
Can we all just say the Google Innovator program?
I mean, yes, you can.
Well, yes. So let's start there. Do that. Or even just your Google Educator levels is just such a great, easy way to start. Really low risk. Like Jen said, having the badges, like I love that idea. That's so great for consistency too. And then I find, and I know like Abid we've talked about this lots, but just the community on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it today, is I found that really helpful, even just for ideas and inspiration, and then support from the community and our network.
Awesome. Are there any Google educators to follow on Twitter, or people that you think have really good ideas or resources in general that you kind of like what they're doing that you can recommend?
We could probably do an entire session on Google educators to follow. What I would say is definitely check out the hashtags Google EDU. There are loads of people. Google ET, Google EI. So Google EI is the Innovator hashtag. So Google Education Innovator. Google ET is Google Education Trainer. But one of my tips would be definitely find your local Google Educator Group, GEGs. There are GEGs all around the world. And again, Twitter is really a great place to find them. You can find them on the A great resource following on from what Megan said about achieving your level 1 and level 2 is starting with the Google Teacher Center, because the Google Teacher Center will take you through the entire workflow of being able to then do the level 1 and level 2 exams. And that's a really great place to start. But also there are links to the other programs on there. So there are links to the Google Innovator programs, there are linked to the Google Trainer programs, there are links to the GEGs that you can find on there. But there are also links to Google partners. So there are loads of Google partners in the world, around the world, that provide training to schools and districts all over the world. One of the tools that we use from a Google partner here in the UK is a tool called Workspace Skills, and that's provided by a company called Canopy. But what's really great is they have a tool which is quite low cost actually, and it literally gives you a virtual environment to work in. And so, for example, this is Google Drive. Can you please create a new file within Google Drive? And so then what it'll do is it'll try to direct you to how to create a new file. And if you click in the wrong place, it'll give you a red circle. If you click in the wrong place, and I think if you click in the wrong place like 5 times, it will then actually highlight where it wants you to click. And so it directs you to click there, and then it says, right, now that you've selected new, now create a new Google document. And it works you through that workflow. And then at the end, it gives you a competency level and an efficiency level. And what's really great on using that with students is at the end they get badges to then celebrate their achievements. But we found that it's really great to use with staff as well as a professional development thing, because ultimately we all start somewhere, and it's a really great tool for people who haven't actually come across the Google Workspace tools at all.
Everyone loves their badges, as Jen said. Gotta love those badges. Awesome. We are going to give people a chance to then ask some questions. So open the floor. The chat is live and everyone can go ahead and just ask a few questions. If you want to make nice comments to Abid and Jen and Megan for joining us today, happy comments are always acceptable. We always like happy thoughts and happy feedback. We do want to give a shout out to our sponsor for today, who is NetSupport. If you're not familiar, NetSupport provides solutions you need to get the most out of your ed tech, including your Chromebooks. So whether that's classroom management and engagement tools for teachers, identifying at-risk and vulnerable students for admins, or supporting monitoring, managing, and tracking your IT assets for techies, you can check it out at netsupportsoftware.com. There's a little plug. So in the chat, let's go back and see. We've got Michael, who is very happy to say hi to everybody. Hi back to Michael. We'll give you a shout out. And then Louise, hello, awesome people, and badges are free, which is very true. Badges are free, and everyone loves badges. So
shout out to Luis. He is our biggest supporter. We love him.
There's a friend there. There's a friendly in the chat, which is always good. Better to have friendlies. Oh, he loves you too. So sweet. Well, it seems like we maybe covered all the questions, but we'll give them a second to maybe type. I know sometimes questions can be complicated and long, so everyone can do that. While we're finishing everything up then, are there any other cool things you've done with Google tools in your classrooms or your schools this year that you would love to share that might help to inspire everybody else who's looking to do more with Google in their classrooms? Oh, and Jared's asking, how badly is Abid missing Cape Town from Innovate EDU?
Very badly. Innovate EDU was it was a STEM conference that I went to last week in South Africa. Amazing. South Africa has an amazing set of passionate innovative educators, and yeah, wonderful conference. So shout out Innovate EDU for sure.
We just got cheerleaders in the chat today. That's all. I was gonna talk about, if you want things to do with Google tools. One of my favorite, because I come from the art world, so I was originally an art teacher. I love to use Google Slides to create stop motion animations and like flip books, and we use it. Yeah, we were doing 4th grade was doing volcano eruption. So we were showing like the stages of a volcano eruption. And on Earth Day, we were doing like a recycling animation where we were literally just doing like a paper ball going into the recycle bin. So it was fun because we were able to tie in like our concepts from school with stop motion. Just it's a digital flip book, so every slide is a different page in it. And it's I like things that are kind of fun, but then like sneakily get your vegetables in there, you know.
Like the broccoli hidden in the mac and cheese. You got to do
Yeah.
it. So.
Yes. Oh, I will add to that actually, just even so many things you can do with animations and it's so accessible. But in math class, they were using it to experiment with frames per second. So it was a ratios lesson. So they were experimenting because when you publish it to the web, you can change the speed. So yeah, it was just, I mean, they had so much fun and just the freedom to create whatever they wanted, but then experiment with the like technical side of it was awesome.
Those are amazing. And I'll pitch out too, like what you were saying with the volcano. You know, I know a lot of schools, budgets are tight. Yay, inflation. And so doing science fairs and things where kids have to get resources and materials can be way too costly. But the idea of taking it and making a digitized version, so instead of making the good old baking soda vinegar blowing up the volcano, which is fun, but god awful to clean up, personal experience here, like making a version of it where you're recreating, you know, Mount Vesuvius or Pompeii or something, you know, going through the slides, then you get that tech piece and it's free because you don't have to pay for all the materials to do it. So I think that's brilliant. And I think a lot of teachers could probably do a lot of amazing things with it. Louisa said, I use forms and sheets to have teacher observation site where everything is stored and available to consult. Nice. And it generates a report for the observer and observee. So really nice peer-to-peer for teachers, not just for students, but something admins can do too. Oh, and also a peer evaluation thing with different students grading each other with rubrics. Love that. I'll throw out self-assessment is so big for our students to be able to evaluate how they're doing. And if they have a tool where they can do that, where you can kind of see how they're self-assessing, but it's not for a grade, but they're able to go through that, is a wonderful way to give students empowerment to kind of judge themselves and make changes and tweaks on how they're doing in their performance and with their mastery of different benchmarks, if we're going to use all of our EDU terms and everything they need to be learning.
I think one thing that I'll add is one really quick win for our staff that have been crying out for it for years is the ability to now annotate on Google Slides during their presentations. That was a massive thing that we've been shouting out for years. So thank you, Google, for bringing that to Google Slides, because that has made life a lot easier from that perspective. And also just following from what Louise said about sheets. I know in our schools, sorry, not sheets, Google Sites, our schools use Google Sites for the children to then develop portfolios where they sort of build on their sort of learning journey as they're going, and literally showcasing their learning journey, which then here in the UK, where we have the very evil Inspectorate Ofsted, when they come in, they can literally see that learning journey that the students have gone through as they've updated and built their portfolio to, you know, what they have learned from sort of A to Z, or Z for the American.
We'll be bilingual here. We can we can go both. But that is a really brilliant idea. As a mom of a kindergartner, the amount of paper they get coming home, which there's a lot to be said about paper, and handwriting is wonderful for brain development. So no one come at me from the handwriting community. I'm a big fan. But from a content perspective, the ability for then students to have that portfolio, not just from 1 year, but maybe from multiple years, to go back and view their learning journey and to go through, is huge to keep it all in place. And in terms of eco-friendly and trying to save, that's a great way to digitize and kind of keep track of some of the things that they've been going through. And I think Louise even said our teachers have portfolios that they keep even after they're gone, in theory. Of course, if you have restrictions or laws about keeping student materials and content with their names and things on it, follow those. No legal advice here, just to follow your regional stuff. But that's wonderful ideas just to keep things going. We have appreciated you guys so much for joining us today. Please give a big shout out to Abid, Megan, and Jen if you're in the chat, telling them thank you for being part of our panel today. We've loved having you. We hope you guys have been inspired by all the wonderful ways that you can use Google tools in your classroom. If you want to find these lovely people, we're going to provide the information after the chat for where you can find them on Twitter, X, whatever it's being called these days, social channels, anything along those lines, and any resources they shared will be available as well. But thank you guys so much, and we loved having you on our chat today. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.